right, well, it is 7 o'clock. Let's go ahead and take a roll call.
Marty Ryan,
Here.
Stacy Gloss,
Present.
Martin Johnston, Elizabeth Mashesky,
Here.
Todd Rusk, Andrew Stump,
Here?
Stephen Wall,
Here.
Scott Tess.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. And yeah, both Todd and Morgan are out. They're both ill this evening, so we'll hope they bounce back quickly, and we'll see them in February. Are there any changes for the agenda this evening?
So I believe last month there was just a discussion about how the SAC and how the Sustainability Office notify the public about meetings and then send out reminders. I believe that Steve brought it up, and that there was some discussion. There were no motions on that. And so I don't know that that really went anywhere, but I did see that that was missing from last month's. Wait a second. I'm
Minutes.
So
sorry.
do you want to wait for the minutes?
I want to wait for the minutes. I thought we were doing
No, that's okay.
I totally
No worries.
jumped the gun.
And
No changes to the agenda.
Excited, getting ahead of things.
I was prepared.
Anything for the agenda? All right, let's roll forward to the minutes. And yeah, Stacy, if you want to resume, this was for the December minutes.
That was for the December minutes,
Okay.
not for this month's agenda. Sorry about that.
And actually, if you could, because I was absent from that meeting, if you could just, do you know where in the agenda it fell? It was just during communications
I don't remember
or?
bringing that up. I remember discussing it. But am I forgetting? I don't
And it
think.
wasn't an agenda.
Someone
item.
questioned it. I know I didn't question it, but it was from
Okay.
someone. I thought that, I don't know. Okay.
It may have been, there was conversation about how we marketed the commission. Yeah, so now I'm thinking, we were talking about the youth involvement. You're right, I did bring it up. I said, do we have, are we reaching out to them in some way to remind them of these meetings? Thinking about youth, thinking about my calendaring skills still, but especially when I was a youth. Thought that they would appreciate it being reached out to. And so you're right, we had a brief conversation about how our meeting, in addition to the official meeting notices, other means such as posting to Facebook or maintaining an email list or posting to the website. And if you've caught all of that, we could
Right.
have that
Yeah.
discussion in next month's meeting.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, it looks like we could probably just add, if we could just add a sentence under continuing business, there is a youth engagement item, so maybe that could just be added,
Okay.
that there was discussion of
Yep.
additional ways to reach out to.
And you know what? I bet that's
You-
where it was.
I think, I brought it up because I remember it,
Mhm.
just because of my perspective was that I sort of felt that the SAC could be doing something, and then the discussion was, well, should that fall on to staff or on the SAC? And so it kind of ended, I think, at that level.
Mhm.
All right. Kate, do you want to read out just what the wording that we're adding to this?
Right,
To
so
add to the
currently in the minutes under youth engagement, it stated staff continues to reach out to community youth and will keep this agenda item available. And so you want me to add, the commission discussed additional outreach efforts?
Yeah. Stacy, does that capture? it?
Sure.
Steve, okay.
Mhm.
All right. And are there any other additions or corrections? Is there a motion to approve the minutes as corrected?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes as corrected, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, and I saw that the approval of the November minutes had gotten bumped to this meeting, so let's go ahead and, did anybody have any changes for the November minutes? Is there a motion to approve them as is?
I will move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the November minutes as is, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, those are also approved. Okay. Let's move on to public input. Do we have any members of the public who wish to address us this evening? I believe we have at least one. If you could just state your name and where you live. And I don't know if you've addressed this before, but typically, it's about 5 minutes or so, and then if commission members have questions for you, we'll ask. So.
Cool. Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Kaylee. I actually just moved here last week from Green Bay, Wisconsin. I'm an environmental organizer.
And actually, could you state your full name?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Kaylee Perfura is my full name. So I'm an environmental organizer. I work for Green Corps, but currently working under Food and Water Watch, which is a nonprofit that focuses on food justice issues, clean water issues. So that's a broad range of things. Currently, we're running a campaign here in Urbana and Champaign to pressure Senator Durbin to block Pruitt as the nominee for the EPA, because for obvious reasons, Scott Pruitt is quite a terrible choice, as he has sued the EPA and taken lots of money from oil and gas industry. So this campaign is calling on Durbin to, do the right thing and block Pruitt as the head of the EPA. And we're collecting petition signatures. We're also going to have a rally in about 2 weeks. We're phone banking tons of folks to come out for different events, a whole range of different kind of grassroots tactics for this campaign. And it's to support Durbin in this decision, because it is a pretty big decision, but it can also be pretty effective because he is the minority whip. And so we're hoping that he'll whip the other ones into shape and have them block Pruitt too. So that's kind of the campaign I'm here doing in Urbana and Champaign, and I'm really hoping to meet lots of people throughout the city. This is one way I'm doing it. And if you guys are interested at all, any of you as an individual or as a committee want to help me on this campaign, we're always looking for people to help either send out an email to your listservs about the rally coming up, about petitioning, pretty much anything from any sort of angle where you guys are willing to help out. That's really what I'm here to talk about. And you guys can talk to me afterwards, and I can give you my contact information, but I'd love any sort of help that you guys would love to put in any sort of capacity, whether it's advice or actual hands-on assistance with the campaign. So all hands on deck, because actually his meeting was scheduled today for next Wednesday, which is terrifying because that's before Inauguration Day. So very urgent, very important stuff, and I know it's a little political, but at the end of the day, I feel like anyone can agree that this is the wrong person to be heading the EPA. So politics aside, I feel like that's very important to remember. So yeah, any questions?
Other questions? All right.
Welcome to town.
Thank you. I'm excited. I found you guys too. Like it so far. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other members of the public that wish to address us this evening? All right. Let's move to communications and staff report.
Good evening. First on staff report, we have some updates on the climate action plan. City Council has approved the power purchase agreement that we discussed for the Arbor Shop that would include renewable energy credits. So we are giving up 5 years worth of renewable energy credits to make the deal cash positive for the city, and keeping the last 20 years of renewable energy credits for our greenhouse gas emissions goals. Staff are continuing to work towards a SolSmart designation. I think we have more than enough points overall in SolSmart. However, there are subcategories with point minimums. So we don't have the point minimum in the planning, zoning, development category. It's my understanding that the planning division will be taking some zoning or subdivision code text amendments to the Plan Commission next month that are going to address some of the best practices in SolSmart with respect to permitting solar. So hopefully that's going to get us a few more points and we can earn that national recognition. I have kind of a raw summary of the most recent, an export from our tree inventory, the City of Urbana's tree inventory for 2016 calendar year. This would be an inventory of every single street tree, that is every tree between the curb and the sidewalk, which the city owns and manages. We have goals to maintain a high level of diversity in family, genus, and species to ensure that any particular disease like emerald ash borer would only hurt a small proportion of our total trees. So you can see where we stand on that. We've met our goal in terms of family. The goal was 30%. We're at 27.5%. We haven't met it in terms of genus. The goal is 15%, and we've got one genus that's over 15% at 27%. Acer is maple. We have a lot of maples. And then we're not quite there. We have 6 tree species that are over our 5% goal, not by a lot. And if I remember correctly, those are mostly maples, apples, and oaks. So Malus spp are all the varietals and cultivars of apple trees, crab apples, and so forth. So our Arbor Division is aware of this. They've long had goals and practices to diversify our urban forests. And unfortunately, they can't just stop planting, say, maples in order to bring the total maple down while they plant other things, because they would end up setting up a kind of a population crash in the future when the pre-existing maples age out and die, and then we have that period of time where we didn't plant any maples. So you still have to plant, you sort of have to plant what the diversity that you want in the future. You have to plant that today, and eventually those percentages will even out. Any questions on that?
Yes. Is this just on the publicly managed lands, but
Correct.
not what families may have on their private property?
Correct. This is just street trees between the curb and the sidewalk. We don't have an inventory of all the trees that are on private property. The Arbor Division did address ash trees on private property in a council presentation yesterday. And what they proposed, I haven't finished listening to it, so I don't know what came of it, but what they're proposing was spending a small amount of money to provide an injection into ash trees that will extend their life. Ash trees that have been infected by emerald ash borer. It will extend their life, and if the property owner so chooses, they can continue those injections into the future, hoping to save or at least delay the removal of ash trees that are infected with emerald ash borer, which occur on private property. So my recollection is it was something like $90 per injection that would be good for 2 years. And the city would just do the first injection and then educate the homeowner to be able to take it over from there. So that's something that they're working on doing to help private property owners. For private property owners who have an ash tree on their private property that's already dead, the city has no programming to assist them. It can be very expensive if it's a fully mature ash tree. $10,000 or $20,000, I think, were the numbers that were quoted. It can be very expensive to remove that tree. I'm talking about bringing in a crane and heavy equipment and so forth. So that's not something that the city has budgeted to assist property owners at this point in time.
Do you have information available for them to be able to remove, like if they don't know how to or where to? Do you have that available?
So I don't know if the city has an inventory. So one of the things that was done before the Arbor Division proposed this assistance for ash trees that are still living was they had a community group actually that just walked sidewalks and looked over fences and geocoded ash trees on private property. Before that, we had absolutely no inventory of any trees on private property. I don't know if they also inventoried standing dead ash trees. But I know that if they contact homeowners at all about ash trees, they're going to give them the full range of education on what they can do. And I mean, at this point, what they can do in terms of a dead ash tree is call a certified arborist and have it removed at some cost. Next note is on public engagement. Staff spoke at a panel discussion on how the state of Illinois budget impacts environmental work that was held in council chambers and hosted by the League of Women Voters. Some updates on U-Cycle. At our previous meeting, members of this commission had asked what the costs were for the new thermometer recycling service that we have. And so I've got that here. As I mentioned, it's a high marginal cost, but a very low annual cost. And given the level of harm from improperly managed thermometers, we thought that was a reasonable cost.
Going back, sorry, is there a record available of the presentation made to the League of Conservation Voters meeting?
League of Women Voters. Does it say conservation?
I thought it's
No.
the LC League. Is it
No,
League of
it's-
Women?
In the notes, it says
Yeah,
League of
League of
Women
Women.
Voters.
Oh, I read it wrong. Okay.
I don't think that was recorded. I'm not sure. I can check though. Jason's not in the room, is he? I have our our 2017 schedule in the packet again because there was a room booking conflict with one of our rooms. I think it was April that's been changed in this calendar, so we had to move that to the executive conference room as well. And our next meeting would be February 7th at 7 p.m. in council chambers.
Any other questions for Scott?
Just not, it's very expensive to get rid of mercury, but fortunately there's such a small amount of it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was going to say, it's less expensive than getting rid of a dead ash tree, apparently.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We have no continuing business, so let's turn to new business with our review of the draft Solar Urbana Champaign 2.0 request for proposals. And I know we have we along with some of the folks in the room here will form an advisory team. And I'm wondering if we could just do kind of a quick round of introductions. I know we have some, familiar faces from last time around, but just to refresh our memories, and I don't know, maybe we could start with Andy and kind of go that way around. And if you could just state your name and which organization or entity that you're with.
Hi, I'm Andy Robinson, and I work with CDAC, but I'm also working with facilities and services on campus.
I'm Marcus Ritchie, and I'm a planner with the City of Urbana. Tor Peterson, Sustainability Coordinator at Parkland College.
And these are observers.
Sorry. Oh, you're just, okay.
They're observers, yeah.
All right.
I work for Johnson Controls. We're interested in the city's sustainability projects, and we heard that you were possibly thinking of doing a performance contract, and
Okay.
I am very involved. I'm a mechanical engineer
Great.
by education, and I've been doing performance contracting and sustainability projects across the state for the last 20 years. So,
Welcome.
thank you.
And, well,
Bruce Combs, Johnson Controls.
yeah.
I just
okay.
work with Dan.
All right, great. All right. And I believe we have Peter Murphy on the phone from MREA?
Correct.
Yeah. Hi, this is Peter Murphy. Thank you all for having me again. I was happy to hear a few familiar names, specifically Marcus. Hello.
Hi, Peter.
So once again, the City of Urbana is going to lead a competitively bid bulk purchase of solar installations program. We're going to work with the Midwest Renewable Energy Association again because that worked out so well last time. And we're going to follow essentially the same process. We have the SAC as kind of a built-in review body and advisory body for the RFP process for this program. But we wanted to, again, like last year, expand into a larger stakeholder group since we make our market area Champaign County for this program. So we invited folks from other cities, unincorporated, other agencies, and we have a few folks joining us that very happy to have their advice on this. So, the purpose of this program is to lower power bills, reduce pollution, and allow people to be their own power plant and have discounted solar arrays installed on their houses. As you know, as I've said to many people over and over again, we had a very successful project last year. We had 26 solar power hours across the county. We had over 200 site assessments and solar installation proposals to homes and businesses, including some ag last year, and those resulted in 81 contracts for new solar installations. That totaled 605 kilowatts of installed capacity, which beat out Chicago's bulk solar purchase program, which had 600 kilowatts of installed capacity. So we don't have any idea if there's another 600 kilowatts of demand out there waiting for us to deliver a below market price again. But there's only one way to find out. So we'll run the project again, do the public education piece through the solar power hours, and put that purchasing opportunity out again. So like I said, similar process. The time frame we're looking at is a early spring launch, so we'd be going spring summer to do power hours. Maybe that will get different people out to our solar power hours and exposed to this opportunity. And then we'll have probably something similar, maybe a calendar year time frame to actually get the installations installed. But we're going to competitively bid it and open it up to all the solar installers in the state of Illinois, like we did last year, and we'll see what happens. You all have seen the request for proposal. We want to take your feedback on that, and Peter and I will make any appropriate edits, and we're going to release that RFP in the next couple days, with the expectation that we're going to get proposals before the next regularly scheduled SAC meeting, and then this body can review those proposals. At this point, I want to turn it over to Peter to talk about the RFP a little bit more, and many of you saw last year's RFP. Maybe Peter will talk about some of the things that are different in this year's RFP.
Sure. And yes, as Scott mentioned, a lot of it is the same. I'm basically just going to go through the RFP and point out major differences. The first is in the advisory committee on page 3. Is it in front of everyone or no?
Yeah. Well, some people have print, some people have digital. I'll put it up on the screen.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure that, if I'm referencing pages, that won't be nonsense. So perfect. So page 3 in the advisory committee, because of the success of the program last year, MREA has been working pretty closely with Straight Up Solar, which was the selected firm from last year. And we have begun an internship program with them. So to avoid any conflicts of interest that may arise, I will not be part of the advisory committee. I'll of course happy to answer any questions, but I will be. MREA will not have a representative on the advisory committee. We are recusing ourselves. The second thing is on page 4. We have added that we would give preference to installation firms that have a sexual harassment policy and firms that have an equal employment opportunity statement. And this is to be a little bit more in line with the procurement practices of the city of Urbana, and also just selected installer, the selected firm, will be providing each owner with information regarding the Ameren Act on Energy incentives. I think we overlooked that in the RFP last year. But of course, the installer did help each owner become familiar with those incentives. And then one thing, and this is my oversight, but we, on page 11 in Exhibit B, in the bidder qualification statement, one thing that we want to implement as a consumer protection more frequently in all of our group buys going forward is that installers sign on or agree to adhere to the SEIA Solar Business Code. It's basically guiding principles for each firm so that they agree up front to avoid any unfair, deceptive, abusive acts or practices. And it's pretty specifically laid out. And in this copy of the RFP that you have, the link to that and the place on Exhibit B where the proposing firm would sign that they do indeed adhere to those business practices or will begin to do so. That's not there. So that is one thing that I'll be adding. It will include a link unless anyone has any strong opposition to including that consumer protection. I think it's just a good thing to start incorporating into these.
And Peter, Peter, you said SEIA, that's Solar Energy Industry Association Business Code, right?
Correct. Yeah, if you type in SEIA business code, it should be the first hit on Google. We have not used this in the past, but I think it's pretty robust. It's good to have. It's good to start including consumer protections like this in RFPs to sort of bring the industry along as we, try to basically adopt best practices. And then last but not least, and possibly the new change that might be the one that would warrant discussion, is that we are including a administrative fee for service. Last year we were by the Department of Energy Sunshot Initiative, and as that grant sunsets, as we do more group buys, we need to make them financially sustainable for the MREA. And so we've included an administrative fee in some of our group buys in the past. We did so in all of our group buys in Milwaukee, and we just finished a group buy in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, northwestern part of the state, that also included the exact same fee as is located here. It's laid out pretty clearly on page 12. But number 5, the $5,000 surety bond, which will be paid to the MREA. Essentially, the proposing installer that gets selected will give us a 10 cent per watt administrative fee, and then after that basically the 5,000 accounts for 50 kilowatts of capacity, and then after 50 kilowatts of capacity, there will be an additional 10 cent per watt fee. And we'll find out what that ends up being at the end of the program when we have all of our participants finalized and the program is over. But
and 50 kilowatts is about 10 homes.
Yeah, probably 7, but yeah, the average system size in Urbana is around 7.3. I believe, kilowatts. We're pretty confident we'll hit that. As to the amount, don't anticipate that this will deter many, if any, participants. We anticipate the price prices for solar arrays and the bids that we get on this program to be lower than they were last year, possibly by 30 or 40 cents a watt, from what I've heard. So this administration will be absorbed by that, and we'll still be seeing lower, certainly lower than average, or lower than the local market install cost per watt. But I don't think it will. Yeah, I just don't think it will hurt the program.
Peter, do you want to mention why you expect prices to be lower?
Say again, Scott?
Do you want to mention why you expect prices to be lower?
Sure. So I believe there's essentially a glut in solar panel manufacturers. So right now, there's it's basically supply and demand. There's a lot of panels on the market. Not low quality panels. There's a glut of high quality panels. And so we're anticipating 2017 prices to be lower inherently.
Very good, thank you. So, any questions that folks had?
I was wondering about the schedule. It looks like on the cover page we've got proposal due date of February 1st. On page 3 it shows proposals due on January 16th.
Yeah, that's just my oversight when we made that last minute change.
Okay. So it's just, okay.
Peter, do you want to mark that?
Yep, got it.
I had a similar question on that. With RFP questions due and the answers posted on the same day, that seems a little bit ambitious, no? Just thinking there might be a little bit of time needed to turn around.
Well, it might need to be more specific. So, if they might be due at noon but posted by 5,
Mm-hmm.
or do the previous day at 5 and posted the next day at by 5. What do you think about that, Peter?
I mean, if you guys.
That sounds fair. Can you point me to the page that you're referring to?
It's
Page 3,
the timeline.
row 3 on the table.
Okay, yeah.
And Peter, do you want to talk a minute about the time frame that we'd be doing solar power hours and folks would be able to get a site assessment and sign a contract, and then what the time frame would be that the vendor would be expected to complete installations?
Sure. So after we select the installer, we'll basically be in process as far as scheduling solar power hours. The strategy again will be to host these info sessions at locations that people already are familiar with, are used to going to. We had a lot of success with Common Ground Food Co-op last year, so I'll be looking to work with them closely. And there will basically be, starting whenever we schedule the initial one, which will probably be February, March timeframe. The homeowners and business owners will be able to get their site assessment all the way into August. And then basically the installing firm will have the following months to finish installations.
So 6-month open period and 6 months for the installer to complete installations.
Mm-hmm. And I would anticipate, it depends on the demand. I guess I shouldn't say I would anticipate them to be completed before December 31st.
Mm-hmm.
The amazing result we had from last year really had, I think, the installing firm, I think it took them by surprise. I know they had to bring on some new staff. But yeah, it's just, we should be seeing the program complete and everyone having their installations done by the end of the year. It's
Okay, so we may write in or shoot for December 31st.
Right.
Anything missing in the RFP anyone thought of?
I know I harped on this last year, but I would love to see made in USA option at least, or alternative that would be for both for the inverter and the modules. So we get information on both.
There was some reference to that, wasn't
In here?
Yeah.
Did I miss it? I looked through this several times.
I thought it said that the bids, one of them had to include
Oh,
it's made in USA. I don't know if it's quite at the level of
See it in
detail
the
you were
keyboard.
looking for.
I
Did I
missed
hallucinate
it
that?
several times. What page? Sorry.
No, let me see.
Oh.
Page 7 under item C. You can provide up to 3 equipment pricing options in Exhibit C. You do not need to provide 3. At least one of the systems you provide cost estimates for must have US-made modules.
I was
Just the modules, not the inverter?
Are there US made inverters, Peter? Yeah?
Yeah,
Tor says
yeah,
yeah.
there are.
Do you want to add inverters in there? Is that going to cost us anything in the bid?
I don't think it won't hurt to have it. I'm happy to add that.
If a company only provides one option, one module, one inverter, do they have to be US made then per this language?
That's what I read it.
I think what any proposing firm would do would be to have, if they have a single product that they prefer to carry, I would assume that it would probably be, Canadian, German, Chinese, Korean, and if they stick to that one product or that one manufacturer as their standby, they're able to, through their suppliers, find an American-made module and inverter that they can include, and their pricing may be higher than they would prefer, but because they're allowed to offer up to 3 options of configurations, I don't foresee that causing problems.
Okay.
So one might offer two if they wanted to meet that requirement.
Yeah. And we might choose them because their cheap non-US made is a really low price, even though their US made may not be a low price.
And last year, was that an option for homeowners as well, for the buyers?
It was. I don't know about modules, but I think there was a US, a Korean, and a Chinese. Is that right, Peter?
I don't remember off the top of my head. One of them might have been Canadian.
Maybe it was Canadian, Chinese, Korean.
The homeowner had the choice.
Correct. Which, when we got that bid, I was concerned that we were adding too much complexity. As part of the opportunity is it's simple, but it didn't seem that way at the Solar Power Hours. I think people appreciated the choice. Is that the feedback you got, Peter, as well?
Yeah. I mean, for the majority of customers, I think we'll get a proposal and they'll look at it and I would say the majority don't have too many questions about products, but some really do appreciate the choice, absolutely.
And now that we're talking about it, I think one, in fact, was U.S. made, because I think I talked to folks who chose to spend a little more on the U.S. made.
This is small and probably quite nitpicky. On page 7, while we're there, in the second to last line, it says the value of the SREX if no. I think that's if known.
I circled that too, so you don't have to feel cheating.
And
got it, thank you.
If we're on the same vein of nitpicky, and I am, in Exhibit C, there's a bullet list, and one thing that jumps out to me because it was instilled in me by my dad. Keep going. No, keep going down. It's a bulleted list.
I think it's above.
Above. Ooh.
On page 12?
Mm-hmm. Just that you're using mixed punctuation at the end of each bullet point. And I'm sorry, pick one or the other, a period or no period.
And also
But like that just, I don't know, it drives some people nuts.
and the indent as well.
I don't know about the indent. That's not me, but sure, Scott.
That reminds me,
I'm adding periods and I'll fix the indent as well.
Or take them all out, either one.
Peter, can you also talk a little bit about how we're addressing the SRECs?
Sure. So the SREC, I just messed up my whole numbering system. But you guys can't see it, I'll fix it later. SREC procurement will be happening in April. So there's, the installers and oftentimes aggregators of SRECs will be bidding for the value, to establish the value of the SRECs. We're going to start the program before that happens. And basically we'll describe the SREC process, but in the info sessions that occur prior to establishment of the value of the SREC, we'll just say, that information is forthcoming. And obviously we'll be in touch with interested parties, folks who are considering solar, and so we'll be able to update them when we do have final numbers. But we didn't want to, in the service of, lining up an installer and then having them be able to predict with hopefully some level of efficacy the amount of solar that they should be bidding into the SREC auction. That would allow us hopefully to get a better value for the SRECs, and it just made more sense to begin prior to the auction than wait for it to be done and then have installers that possibly underestimated or overestimated their capacity capability.
Well, actually, I guess I'm a little confused. Is there, I'm sort of thinking about timeline. If April is the SREC sale, are there power hours before April?
Yes.
Yes.
So what we would do is we would start solar power hours late February, early March, and they're going to be very similar. We'll tinker with the PowerPoint, but they're going to be very similar to last time. When we get to the SREC value, we're going to give a range of what we think it's going to be. The state is most definitely going to have an SREC procurement, but they don't have a fixed date. They have I think in fact what the official approved plan says is spring. So, how long do you want to wait? What if it's really late spring? We're losing, crucial months in spring and early summer where there may be a lot of people thinking about home improvement because the weather is getting nicer. So we don't want to wait for that, but we'll communicate that, and we'll work with the vendor, the installer, the vendor, to secure SRECs for any installations they have. And they're going to pass through most of that value. They might take some small percentage as an administrative fee, but such is the nature of the SREC market. About 8 companies buy all the SRECs, and they're aggregators. They put up all the money, speculative money, to get them all, and then they're doling them out to all the smaller installers. And if homeowners always have the ability to go to the SREC market themselves and see if they can get a better price. They don't have to sell their SRECs at all, and they don't have to sell them through our selected installer. It's an add-on.
How did that work in the last year? Was there sort of an example of how that worked?
The only difference between this year and last year is the SREC procurement had already happened when we put out our RFP, and so the vendor already had agreements with SREC aggregators on how much they thought they could install and what the prices would be and so on.
Do you remember sort of percentage-wise what that brought the cost down, or?
I think it was about a quarter of the cost. So I think it came out to be, everything depends on the particulars of the site, but a $20,000 installation, it's like $5,000 over 5 years, something like that.
Because this proposal is asking for, the RFP is asking for people to give scenarios, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we did last year.
Now, so last year and this year, they're going to be proposing a cost per kilowatt installed. So that doesn't include the 30% federal tax credit that a homeowner and business will get a little bit later. It doesn't include asset depreciation that a business gets a little bit later, tax time. And it doesn't include last year or this year the SREC value. Now, they may in their scenarios say, here's my cost per kilowatt. Here's the total, and then the homeowner, the scenario, the homeowner can take 30% off and asset depreciation and SRECs, and here's about what they're really going to end up paying. So they can do that in the scenario.
Was there a reason that we didn't describe that? I don't remember having those scenarios in the presentations last year. Was there a reason why we didn't have that? Or maybe they got in there towards the end.
I think there were scenarios. There is some reticence to tell people how much it costs because every site's different.
All right. Well, maybe we can have that conversation with the committee later.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to follow up on that part of it.
I think they had some.
We had sample arrays of, I think, 5, 10, and I want to say 25, or maybe it was 20 kilowatts. The larger one being commercial or nonprofit. And there were some, the scenarios were laid out, but it was kind of just rules of thumb. And then in the proposals that customers would receive, they would get a little bit more granularity as to like what they could expect.
Marcus,
given this site.
What was the SREC amount last year, and is there an expected hoped for range this year, or at least is it going to be higher or lower based on what the state is doing?
Peter, the question was, do we recall what the SREC value was last year, and do we have an expectation of the value this year?
I believe it was 185 last year, and this year I don't know. It's hard to know what any given installer is going to do. But from a pretty candid conversation I had with one installer, they were expecting no less than $130, and they were hoping for probably around $150. This was also, I'll leave it at that for now.
So it's a significant proportion of the total cost.
I'm sorry, so the 185, and you said that's on a per kilowatt basis?
So it's for each megawatt hour of production. So every 1,000 kilowatt hours your array produces, you would get $185 in credit. So as a rule of thumb, 1 kilowatt of capacity produces around 1,200 kilowatt hours per year.
And Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, presuming that the installer arranges SRECs that are going to be procured by the state of Illinois, they're going to sell 5 years worth of SRECs, and they'll get checks quarterly based on the actual kilowatt hour production of their array.
I don't remember if it's quarterly or annually, but that sounds correct.
Is SREC income taxable?
Marcus says yes.
At least it was in the Solar Bloomington Normal campaign.
Good enough.
I guess, you're selling a commodity, so. Marcus.
So Peter mentioned something about Straight Up Solar and some internship program. What I was wondering was, will Straight Up Solar be eligible to submit a bid?
Yes. Other questions, comments?
One sort oh,
Go ahead.
go ahead. Just one sort of general question, I guess. Given the fact that, we penetrated the market with the first round, do we see any rationale in changing or broadening our marketing approach for round 2? Are there underserved markets that we may have missed? I just think, focusing so heavily on common ground, is there a demographic that goes there that we're over maybe serving,
Sure.
or what have you?
We had discussed, Peter and I had discussed that there's probably, so there was over 200 proposals and 81 contracts signed. So there's 100 people out there that were pretty interested but had a barrier of some sort. Some number of them probably were very interested but just couldn't quite put up all that cash up front, because this is a cash purchase program. We don't expect anyone to propose a power purchase agreement. It's not very common in Illinois because the margins are very thin. We did discuss the potential of, we looked for grant opportunities whereby some grant-making agency might buy down some of the cost for, say, income qualified households, but we didn't see anything. We also talked to at least one bank about whether they thought the specific nature of a solar installation warranted a specific and better loan product, and we haven't gotten a yes on that. So it's just, we have home improvement loans, people can do that, but nothing special or lower interest rate or anything like that. So the installers may bring proposals for third-party lending, as they did last year with the National Solar Lender. I don't think very many, if anyone, took advantage of that last year. So we've explored some of that. The one thing I'd like us to focus on a little bit more this year, which I think we can do, is commercial. Commercial is a better deal than residential because they get asset depreciation and they're on a bigger scale. So, one of the things the installer told us last year, based on their experience as a company over time, is that commercial clients of theirs take twice as long to decide yes than residential. So maybe that means all the commercial folks who were interested but didn't go last year are going to go this year. Maybe we can focus on business associations and try and get in front of them more. So those are some things I'm interested in, just because it's a better deal than it is for homeowners.
Was a good portion.
I'd like to also add, if I may, that question sounded like it came from a really good place, and I certainly welcome any and all suggestions as to where to host power hours. We had really good luck with Common Ground Food Co-op, so we did, I believe, 3 info sessions there, maybe 2.
I know 2, at least.
We did 3. We might have done 4, because I think the last one was at Common Ground, and we kind of added it at the end. But it was because they were so enthusiastic and they pushed it to their members. So member organizations, like credit unions and co-ops, that can push this as an opportunity to their members that then reflects positively on the member organization, really tend to do well. But we also worked with the Farm Bureau. We worked at Cranner Center for Performing Arts. We did one household. We had one for the Regional Planning Commission of Champaign County, Illinois Sustainable Technology Center, the Independent Media Center, the Unitarian Universalist Church. We worked a lot with Faith in Place to try to get the word out. So to answer your question, yes, I think we do need to focus on casting a really wide net. And just to reiterate, I really welcome any suggestions or connections about local people on the ground having conversations and spreading the word about this opportunity. And it can't be top down. So. Yes, and thank you.
We had solar power hours at a few churches, but there are many more that we did not have solar power hours at, so that's an opportunity. The other opportunity is ag, which gets, if it's an ag-related business, they get not only the tax credit, asset depreciation, there are also specific USDA programs that both grants and loans that make it a really good deal for ag-related businesses. None of those, almost none of those are going to be in the city of Urbana, but it's still good if others in unincorporated do this.
You could incentivize to commercial entities by showing them how they can get public recognition for their solar edition, their sustainability edition, by showing them different sustainability award programs that they could use to leverage their greenness to their customers.
Yeah, maybe we can do, as people sign contracts, we can feature them in emails that promote the power hours.
Along those lines, I wonder if even some of the past participants from last year that were highlighted, even in emails from last year, can be included in the PowerPoint for this year as well, and some of those case studies, for instance.
That's a great idea.
I think, people who installed last year also could provide testimonials all the way up to, hosting a coffee or something like that. I don't know what kind of incentive you might need to do to induce that, but it would be very powerful. Peer-to-peer.
Personal testimony.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it's might be
People actually seeing them, talking to normal people.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be cool to get that group together, the 81 homes. Almost.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Celebrate them. I can't believe the talking point that we beat Chicago is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Didn't know about that.
Scott, do you know if anybody took advantage of straight up solars, like the dividend?
The dividend loan program.
Right, last year?
I don't think anyone did.
Okay.
Peter, do you remember if anyone used dividend solar loan?
If they did, I didn't hear about it.
Yeah, it had some unique repayment mechanisms, so that might have been off-putting.
Are we setting any goals this time around the way that we did? I mean, I know we just blew right past our goals. We had our 100 kilowatt threshold and our 115. We just blew right past. Are we setting any of those kind of goals this time around?
Peter, is that in the RFP?
It is in the RFP, and we actually didn't discuss it. Now that you mention it, it's something that we should probably visit. Last year, it was 100, 150, and 250.
Yeah.
And now it's these are numbers that are essentially templated. So that explains why they're so low. I would be inclined to change these thresholds.
What page are those on?
Yeah, I missed those.
It's Exhibit C, page 14. And it's in that baseline bid information table, the one with the red example on the top. It's all the way to the right. The total participant capacity in gray. Less than 50 kW, what's the price per watt?
Okay. All right. I saw it.
51 to 100 kilowatts is the price per watt, and so on. Last year when we set the 100 kilowatt goal, we were really going in blind. We had no idea what to expect. And obviously we were pleasantly surprised. But I think there's kind of a sweet spot that needs to be established. If you put the goals too high, you get diminishing returns. If you can't reach all three thresholds, then you don't. It hurts the momentum for the program. to reach out to press, to do an email blast, and remind folks that this is happening. But if you set the goals too modestly, then you blow right past them at the beginning of the program, and you don't have anything to talk about. So setting them accurately is really kind of crucial for program success.
Peter, do you think the installers are going to recognize what you're asking for there? Or do we need some description?
I've never had any problem.
Okay.
If an installer does have a question, I mean, they'll ask. They're not shy.
Okay.
I don't know, do those numbers seem, maybe they seem reasonable? I don't know what, we assume that we're going to have fewer people this year than were last year, total numbers.
Right, yeah.
It might be fine, I don't know.
It might actually be more.
That's changing it to 100,
applications.
150 and 250 again.
I'm inclined to use the exact same that we had last year, which would be 100, 150, and 250.
Oh, I see what you're saying. These are lower than they were last year.
These are lower than last year, yeah.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Because we're not the only solar power hours
Gotcha.
solarized that Peter's working with.
It's a stretch goal, right?
Yeah.
To stretch to what those were last year. See, that seems fine.
And, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to follow, and then on page 13 and 14, do we have any sort of definition? I remember the thing about the small systems adder. I feel like there were a lot of people that had small systems. And was there a definition of what makes a small system, or is that really just up to the installer?
The installer definitely had a specific number in mind.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, should we specify that here, or should we just have the installer propose that and we'll lock them in at whatever they propose?
Would that get listed here?
I think it's the prerogative of the installer to basically put together thresholds that allow them to give us the best pricing that they can.
Mm-hmm.
And if we feel like the small system adder or any other like large system break or anything like that are inappropriate or slightly off, we can negotiate. If we narrow it down to one or two installers, and if that's one of the last things that's kind of a decision point for the advisory committee, if all other things being equal, if that's the only thing that would make a difference, we can go back to the installer and say, hey, we want you to change this because we don't feel it accurately represents the sort of distribution of sizes of the arrays that we'll be getting.
Yeah. And the other item on that was, I don't remember if we had this last year or not. I remember a little discussion about it, but as another adder, did anybody ever have discussion about non-south facing, sort of east and west facing roofs? Were those completely off? I feel like they get like a 20% reduction in overall production.
Yeah, so, as a rule of thumb, we discourage east and west facing roofs for homeowners who have those roofs from vegetation. But that's because, from a customer acquisition point of view, the installer is able to keep costs low because this program delivers them a lot of warm leads that they can work with. But if we go ahead and suggest that everybody, no matter what, come in, get a site assessment, that ends up wasting the installer's time and costing them more money and us more money as a result. Us as a program. So while I discourage anyone who doesn't have a south-facing or nearly south-facing roof from participation, the installers occasionally will say, well, wait a minute, let's have a look. If you've got, zero shade, we can configure it such that, it'll have a reasonable rate of return. So I wouldn't, in terms of putting that in Exhibit C, I don't think we necessarily need to prohibit it.
It doesn't add cost.
It doesn't add costs. It just produces return to the homeowner.
Yeah.
So it's not really an adder for the installer.
Okay.
Are we going to have any, I think last time around we had like a minimum and maximum size of system. is that going to be part of this program? And especially if we're going to target commercial, it seems like we might not want to have a maximum, but I don't know.
So we had a kind of a de facto maximum because the state was providing really good SREC procurement prices for small systems, 25 kW and under. If someone comes in and they want 50, I'm sure the installer will figure out a way. And they may even, if it's a large enough system, they may just refer them to a larger installer or something like that. I think we're focusing. There is, I think, some difference in the installers in the market. We're certainly focusing on the smaller ones. Peter, do you have a response for that?
I think you said it quite well. The upper limit was just the result of policy. If there's a really big install, I don't have anything to add.
And we're not excluding them. Does it say anywhere where we're excluding them anyway, or
I don't recall the language we used in the solar power hours. I don't know that we definitely told people we're not going to give you a 30 kW installation, but I think we were clear that because essentially everyone sells their SRECs, their first 5 years of SRECs. So we were clear that with folks that if they wanted a 30 kW, the installer or themselves would have to make a different arrangement for SREC sales, which the state was procuring some large system SRECs. Well, in fact, I think what happens is for the larger systems that qualify for a different SREC procurement through the state, they quickly get bought up with really large installations. So those are not as available. But if someone wants to go out in the wider market and try and sell them for a 30 kW installation, I'm sure that we'll have our installer will be happy to put it in.
So we cross that bridge when it comes.
Yeah. I mean, 25, there's not a lot of households that need a 25 kW.
So the businesses, so the Unitarian Church is putting on 25 kilowatts, and that is 70% of our use. If we were a full-time business, I guess we maybe would want a bigger system, but it's still a pretty big system.
Yeah. And also it's possible that a commercial facility that wants a 50 kW system because they're that big may get better pricing going out on their own with that scale. And I don't know that for sure, but they could always look at our project and as one price and go out and get another bid and see what happens.
And I know you talked a little bit about folks who, where it was difficult to finance the program. Do we have people who just simply missed the deadline? Do we keep track of anybody that we might get a hold of and say, hey, there's another opportunity now?
Yeah, everyone who gave their email at sign-in at a Solar Power Hour or on the website, we still have that.
Okay.
And so we can contact them.
Great. And we're going to use the same logo and all the...
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I don't know if we need to put a 2.0 in there or something, but...
I was just biting my tongue. I was going to say, well, we might add it a little 2.0.
Cool.
Other questions or comments? All right.
Yeah, one quick, just more of an observation. I just wanted to publicly say thanks to you, Scott, and Peter at MREA for everything that you've done. I think that the last round exceeded all expectations and was fantastic, and the fact that we're doing it again delights me. So I don't feel like you've gotten enough kudos. So there you go.
Thank you.
I second that phrase for Scott. He's great to work with.
If there are no other questions or comments, it sounds like the sense of the body here is that we've got with these edits that we've discussed, we've got a good RFP. Head nods?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. I think we're good, Peter.
All right. So you don't need a formal vote on this, you just...
You can if you like, but I don't think it's necessary.
All right.
This, the city does not. The city's not a participant in the bid or the contract. Okay. So, the city is in a certain sense, the city's supporting MRE's project as much as MRE is supporting the city's.
All right. Okay, next we have announcements. Are there any announcements this evening? All right. Seeing there's no announcements, let's move to adjournment. And I'll just briefly remind folks that if you'd like to participate in Kaylee's effort to sit through the entire meeting to get her contact information, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we're adjourned.